how do you use what you learned to be an entrepreneur? And at what point do you pivot and you're like, this isn't working or this is working? Because you found so much success in a specific avenue. At what point did you learn that?
So I had no original aspirations to be an entrepreneur. I saw entrepreneurs as people who had brilliant ideas and they understood business and they had all these resources and experiences and knowledge to be able to go down that. Like, I don't have that. I've never had the desire to be an entrepreneur. I wasn't very entrepreneurial in school or anything. And you hear about these guys that in high school I was making 10 grand a month fixing people's computers or whatever it is. Like,
Yeah.
I never had that idea. And so when I was getting out of the military, I was just looking for a job. Like, what's something that I would enjoy doing that lets me live here in San Diego, gives me purpose, and makes it feel like I'm doing something meaningful while still having the resources and the time to do the other things that I enjoy. Because I recognized pretty early on that I'm not going to be able to replace the SEAL teams. I was fortunate that I started going down the route to apply for HRT within the FBI. So it's their SWAT, super SWAT special forces. And I was most of the way through the interview process as I was getting out of the military. And I just had this moment of clarity, like, I actually don't want to do this. First off, I don't want to go back to Quantico, which is where HRT is located. And I feel like I'm just trying to fill that void that I was going to have leaving the SEAL teams. I just wanted to have that combat related profession. But I figured once I got there, I'd be like, well, it's not the SEAL teams. It's not the same. I don't know if I really want. And so I abandoned that completely. I called them and told them that I didn't want to move forward with joining the FBI anymore. I was just going to find a career that allowed me the time and afforded me the amount of money I needed to do this stuff. I wasn't trying to become some multimillionaire. I just wanted to be able to go surfing, work out, travel, spend time at home with my wife. We were looking to have a family soon. And so those were my priorities. And I knew that pretty early on. And so I got a job as a recruiter, actually. I originally I had no intention of being a recruiter. I saw recruiting as HR and HR was Toby from The Office. Like, I don't want to do that. But after talking to some outside recruiters about what they did, like, I have huge amounts of independence and freedom. I choose my own hours as long as you're a organized and hardworking person, you can do really well. I've decided to give that a try. And I was working with a company for about 10 months before I realized this is not for me. Nothing against recruiting. I didn't like working for somebody else where I was giving up 75% or more of the money I was bringing in when I was doing full cycle recruiting. I was bringing on new clients. I was placing candidates. I was negotiating contracts. I was sending invoices, like all these things that you basically do running a business. I didn't feel like I was really getting anything back from the company that I was working at. They didn't have some recognizable name brand that I can drop. Like, I couldn't say I was working at Corn Ferry or something like that, where it's a big recruiting agency that they might recognize. And so I was doing my own branding and marketing as it was. So I decided, what? I'm going to give this a whirl. I'm going to try starting my own recruiting agency. And a service-based industry is a great segue into entrepreneurship because there's very little overhead. I already owned a computer, I already owned a cell phone. I don't need an office. All I needed was a little bit of software from LinkedIn Recruiter. I went on Google and PowerPoint, made my own logo. I had a free Gmail that I started with it. I'm like, cool, I'm open for business, like $7,500 a year in total overhead. And that was really my first experience with running a business. And I learned to love it. I'm like, this is a ton of fun. It gives me so much freedom. I love building this stuff up. And it was really just on a whim that I started posting stuff on LinkedIn, talking about entrepreneurship, starting a business, things to consider, and a ton of veterans in my very small network at the time becoming really engaged with the stuff I was posting. And it made me realize that there wasn't a ton out there in terms of resources for veterans to become entrepreneurs. There's 1,001 organizations out there to help veterans get jobs, learn skills, resume prep, interview prep, all those types of things. But if you wanted to be an entrepreneur, there wasn't a lot out there to make you successful. And so I started building something out to help other people have something similar to what I had. I didn't have all the answers. I had a data point one of one with a recruiting agency. There's a ton of other businesses out there, completely different industries, different models, but I could at least talk to the fundamentals of starting a business, getting EIN, incorporating, setting up emails, bank accounts, credit cards, all the basic stuffs to give people a roadmap so they have some direction to go with starting their business.
What a road in terms of I'm gonna try this and I'm just gonna it's like you seem to have no fear. You just kind of are like enjoying the
It'll
journey
buff
and
out.
yeah, it'll buff out.
Well, man, I looked at it like if it completely fails, I'll get a job. I'm sure I can find a job someplace. I don't need a ton of money. I've been fortunate in that the way I've designed my life, we have a very low cost of living, even though we're in San Diego. I got my house at a good time. I couldn't teach that to somebody else. It was dumb luck. I bought it at a low point that I didn't know was a low point. I refinanced when it was like 2% interest and we had already paid off our car. So like, and now I have medical through the VA. And so things have worked out and I've taken advantage of those, but I live within my means. I don't spend a bunch of stuff superfluously. And so I'm able to take those bigger risks, knowing that if it completely fails, hell, I can go get a job as a bartender and cover my needs. I can work at a coffee shop to make ends meet for a while as I recoup. It's the same thing we talk about in jujitsu, just being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Sometimes it's going to suck, but you work through it's life doesn't have to be as hard as people make it out to be. And yes, I'm a privileged white dude who lives in San Diego. I get it. You can talk shit, but
No.
at some point, there's a lot of stuff out there for a lot of people that if you just have the right mindset, you can do remarkably well.